Jay stared at her painting with tired eyes. Something was wrong with it, but she couldn't tell what. The colors of space looked flat. The stars didn't shine right. She had been working for 6 hours straight in the small art studio on Harmony Station. Still not good enough, she whispered to herself. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Master Ta walked in, his 4 eyes blinking in pairs. The old alien moved slowly toward Jay's canvas. His skin had a soft blue glow that lit up the dim studio. "Show me your progress," he said. Jay stepped back from her work. It was a painting of Earth seen from space. The blue planet looked small against the darkness of space. She had tried to capture how humans felt seeing their homeworld from far away. Master Tai was quiet for a long time. His upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, a sign he was thinking hard. "The technique is good," he finally said, "but there is no feeling, no truth." Jay's shoulders dropped. She had heard this before. "I don't understand," she said. "I worked so hard on this." "Hard work is not enough. Art must speak truth." Master Ta pointed at the canvas. "This could be any planet. Where is the human connection? Where is the soul?" Jay wanted to argue but stopped herself. Master Ta was the best artist on Harmony Station. Many traveled across the galaxy to learn from him. "Try again," he said, more gently now. "Look deeper inside yourself." After he left, Jay sat on her stool and fought back tears. She was the only human in Master Ta's class. Sometimes she wondered if alien eyes could ever understand human art. On the other side of the station, 5 beings walked through the shining main corridor. They wore formal robes that marked them as important. Station guards followed them closely. "The Stellar Confederation appreciates your visit, honored guests," said Captain Mun, the human in charge of station security. "We have prepared special rooms for you." The tallest visitor, Elder Rim, looked around with large golden eyes. His thin face showed no emotion. "We are pleased to be here," he said in a voice like rustling leaves. "I hear your station has an art district." Captain Mun seemed surprised by the question. "Yes, Elder. Would you like to visit it?" "Tomorrow, perhaps. I am particularly interested in human artistic expression." The other aliens in the group shifted uncomfortably. One whispered something that made another shake its head. "Of course," said Captain Mun, noticing the tension but choosing to ignore it. "I'll arrange a tour." Back in her room, Jay washed paint from her hands. Her small living space was filled with unfinished works. Some hung on walls, others leaned against furniture. Her communication panel blinked. It was her friend Hyun from station security. "How was class?" Hyun's face appeared on the screen. "Master Ta didn't like my painting." Again, Jay dried her hands. "He says I'm not showing the truth." Hyun smiled sympathetically. "You'll get it next time." "I'm starting over tomorrow." Completely new approach. Ja looked at her latest failure. "I need to find a way to show how it really feels, not just how it looks." That's the spirit. "Oh, by the way, heads up, some big shots from the Confederation arrived today. The whole station's on alert." "Politicians?" Jay asked, not really interested. "Diplomats, I think. One of them wants to tour the art district." "Well, I hope they don't come while I'm working. I need complete focus tomorrow." After saying goodbye, Jay looked out her small window at the stars. She didn't know that across the station, Elder Rim was reviewing old files about human art. She didn't know that her name had just been flagged in the Confederation's security system. She didn't know that tomorrow everything would change. All she knew was that she needed to start again, to dig deeper, to find the truth in her art. Morning came quickly on Harmony Station. Jay arrived at the studio early, before any other students. She set up a fresh canvas and closed her eyes. Today would be different. Instead of painting Earth again, Jay decided to try something new. She started with dark colors, creating a violent cosmic storm. Then, in the center, she painted a single human figure standing tall against the chaos. The figure was small but strong. Light seemed to come from within it, pushing back the darkness. Jay worked quickly, letting her feelings guide her hands. 3 hours passed like minutes. She didn't hear the studio door open. "Interesting choice," said Master Tay, making Jay jump. "I started over," she explained. Master Tai studied the half-finished painting. "Yes, this has truth. Continue." Jay smiled. This was the first time Master Tai had praised her work so directly. "The Art Academy is through here, Elder Rim," Captain Mun said, leading the alien delegation down a wide corridor. Elder Rim walked slowly, his golden eyes taking in every detail. Behind him, 4 other aliens followed with station security guards. "Our academy teaches students from 17 different species," Captain Mun continued proudly. "Master Tai is one of the most respected artists in this sector." They entered a large room where several students worked. Some painted on canvas, while others created digital art or sculpted with strange materials. Elder Rim barely noticed them, his attention fixed on a studio door across the room. "What's in there?" he asked. "That's Master Tay's private teaching space," Captain Mun answered. "He works with advanced students one-on-one." Elder Rim moved toward the door before anyone could stop him. Jay was adding final touches to the human figure when the door opened again. She expected Master Tay, but instead, a tall alien with golden eyes stood there. Behind him, Captain Mun looked apologetic. "Sorry for the interruption," Captain Mun said. Elder Rim was interested in seeing all the studios. Jay nodded politely and stepped aside to let them view her work. The moment Elder Rim saw the painting, he froze. His golden eyes widened. His thin body began to shake. "Are you all right, Elder?" Captain Mun asked, alarmed. Elder Rim didn't answer. He stared at Jay's painting as if seeing a ghost. Then he made a strange sound, like a scream but held back. "Get him out," one of the other aliens ordered. 2 guards quickly helped Elder Rim leave the room. Jay stood confused, her paintbrush still in hand. "What just happened?" she asked Master Tai, who had returned during the commotion. "I do not know," he answered, but his 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign he was troubled. In the security office, Hyun and her partner Dae replayed the studio footage. "He definitely had some kind of reaction to the painting," Dae said. Hyun nodded. "Run a background check on Elder Rim." Dae typed commands into the computer. "This is weird. Most of his file is classified. But look at this." The screen showed an old document. Most words were blacked out, but one phrase was clear: "The destroyer's canvas." "What does that mean?" Hyun asked. "I don't know, but it's connected to human art from 300 years ago," Dae replied. "During the collapse of the Axian Empire." That evening, Jay's communication panel blinked. She had just returned to her room, still confused about the strange event at the studio. The message was simple: "Your painting. I must see it privately. Tomorrow at sunset. S." Jay stared at the message for a long time. She didn't know anyone whose name started with S, but something told her this was important. As she got ready for bed, Jay looked at a small picture on her wall. Her great-grandmother standing in front of a famous art museum on Earth. The family resemblance was strong. "What did I paint today?" she whispered to herself. "And why did it scare that alien so much?" She didn't know that across the station, Elder Rim was having nightmares about empires falling and stars going dark. She didn't know that her name was now the subject of an emergency Confederation meeting. All she knew was that tomorrow, she would meet this mysterious S and hopefully get some answers. The day passed slowly for Ja. She couldn't focus on her painting. Her mind kept returning to Elder Rim's strange reaction and the mysterious message. At sunset, Jay sat in a small cafe in the station's quiet zone. Few people came here. The lights were dim, making it hard to see other customers. "Ja." A soft voice spoke from behind her. Jay turned to see an elderly human woman. Her white hair was tied neatly in a bun, and her eyes were sharp despite her age. "I'm Sue," the woman said, sitting down across from Ja. Thank you for coming. How do you know about my painting? Jai asked. Sue smiled. News travels fast on this station, especially when an elder of the Confederation has a public meltdown. A server brought them tea. Sue waited until they were alone again before continuing. I'm a historian. I study how humans and aliens have interacted throughout history. Sue pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. Do you know much about your family? Jay shrugged. Not really. My parents died when I was young. I was raised by my uncle. Sue touched the device. A hologram appeared between them, a young woman who looked remarkably like Jai. This is Ji, Sue said. She lived 300 years ago. She was your ancestor. Jay stared at the image. The resemblance was striking. Ji was an artist, like you. Sue continued. She became famous during the human-Axian conflicts. Then suddenly, she disappeared from all records. What happened to her? Jai asked. That's the mystery, but before she vanished, her paintings became problematic. Problematic how? Sue leaned forward. Axian military leaders who saw her work suffered mental breakdowns. Some went insane. Others simply stopped functioning. Jay felt a chill. That's impossible. They're just paintings. The human brain and Axion brain work very differently. Something in Ji's art triggered severe reactions in their neural pathways. Sue touched the device again, showing more images. The Axian Empire began to collapse soon after her work spread. On the other side of the station, Elder Rim sat in a medical bay. Machines monitored his vital signs. Are you certain? He asked the Confederation scientist who stood nearby. Yes, Elder, the scientist replied. The brain scans confirm it. The human's painting triggers the same neural pathways as the historical records describe. Elder Rim closed his golden eyes. After 3 centuries, how is this possible? Genetic memory, perhaps, or maybe just coincidence, but the pattern is unmistakable. Does she know what she can do? We don't believe so. She appears to be an ordinary student. Elder Rim laughed bitterly. She is anything but ordinary. Her ancestor nearly destroyed us. Back in the security office, Hyun and Dai worked late into the night. I found something, Dai said, pointing at his screen. Old military files from Earth. Most are encrypted, but look at this name. The screen showed a document with Ji's name highlighted. Project Canvas, Hyun read aloud. Subject demonstrates unusual ability to affect Axion neural structure through visual stimuli. It was a weapon program, Daz said. They were using this artist's work as a psychological weapon against the actions. Hyun frowned. And now her descendant is here, making similar art. It gets worse, Daz said grimly. According to this, the human military took Ji away for specialized training. She never returned to civilian life. We need to warn Ja, Hyun said, standing up. Wait, Dad grabbed her arm. There's more security around the art district now. The Confederation has sent observers. We need to be careful. So you're saying my art could hurt aliens? Jai asked Sue, trying to understand. Not all aliens, just specific species, particularly those with quantum-sensitive neural structures. Sue sipped her tea. The actions were the most affected. Their descendants still exist, though they no longer have an empire. Like Elder Rim. Sue nodded. Exactly. But I don't understand how this is possible, Jay said. Neither do I. Fully. Sue closed the hologram. But I believe it's something in how your family sees the universe. You translate reality onto canvas in a way that breaks certain minds. Jay thought about her new painting, about the human figure standing against cosmic chaos. I need to see more of Ju's work, she said suddenly. Sue smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I have access to a collection, hidden away for centuries. As they left the cafe, neither noticed the figure watching them from the shadows, or the small drone that followed them into the night. Sue led Jay through less used corridors of Harmony Station. They went down 3 levels to an area marked Historical Archives. Few people came here. The collection is kept in a special room, Sue explained as she placed her hand on a scanner. Temperature and light controlled to protect the old artwork. The door slid open. Inside, the room was cool and dimly lit. Glass cases lined the walls. Each one held a painting. "These are G's works," Sue said, "the ones that were saved." Jay moved slowly from case to case. The paintings showed strange cosmic scenes, weird planets, and space phenomena. But each one also had a human figure somewhere in it, sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden. "They're beautiful," Jay whispered. She stopped at one painting that showed a star exploding. In the corner stood a tiny human figure, watching the destruction. Something clicked in Jay's mind. Suddenly, she understood how Jai had created the effect of light and darkness. She saw the technique behind the emotion. "I see it now," Jay said softly. How she did it. How she made the feelings real. Sue watched Jai carefully. "What do you see?" "It's not just about what things look like. It's about what they mean." Jay's eyes moved quickly from painting to painting. She wasn't just painting space. She was painting how humans see space, how we stand against it. Unknown to Jai, small sensors in the room recorded her brain activity as she looked at the paintings. The data streamed to a secure Confederation facility elsewhere on the station. "The patterns match," a Confederation scientist told Elder Rim. "Her neural activity is almost identical to what we have on record for G." Elder Rim stared at the brain scans on the screen. "Is it genetic then?" "Possibly. Or perhaps it's something more." The scientist looked uncomfortable. "We still don't fully understand how human creativity works." In another corner of the room, Commander Q listened silently. Unlike Elder Rim's thin frame and golden eyes, Q was stocky with red-tinged skin. His species had fought alongside the actions during the old conflicts. "This is a threat," Q said finally. "If she develops this ability further, it could destabilize diplomatic relations." "She's just a student," Elder Rim argued. "She doesn't even know what she can do." "Neither did her ancestor, at first," Q countered. "We all know what happened next. The Axian Empire fell. Millions died in the chaos that followed." "That was war," Elder Rim said. "This is peace. Peace that can easily break." Q moved toward the door. "I'll bring this to the full council. We need to contain this situation." Back in his private studio, Master Tad examined Jay's painting. The human figure standing against cosmic chaos seemed to glow with inner light. The technique was like nothing he had seen from her before. 4 small drones hovered at the corners of the room, watching him. Station security had installed them that morning. The door opened. Captain Munn entered. "Have you noticed changes in her work?" he asked without greeting. Master Ta blinked his 4 eyes slowly. "She is finding her voice." "That's not what I asked." Master Tad turned all eyes to the captain. "Yes, her technique has improved suddenly. Her understanding of light and shadow has deepened." "Since when?" "Since yesterday, after she started this new painting." Captain Munn studied the canvas. "You were assigned to watch for this, Ta. That's why we placed her in your class 3 years ago." "I know my duty," Master Ta said stiffly. "But she is also my student, and a gifted one. Your fondness for her doesn't matter now. The Confederation is involved." Captain Munn moved to the door. "Keep teaching her, but report everything to me." After the captain left, Master Ta stood quietly before Jay's painting. In all his years teaching, he had never seen talent like hers. It would be a shame to see it suppressed. But he also remembered the old stories, the paintings that drove viewers mad, the artists who disappeared. "What are you becoming, Jay?" he whispered to the empty room. The next morning, Jay returned to the studio early. Her mind was full of ideas after seeing G's artwork. She mixed new colors and added details to her painting that she hadn't planned before. The human figure in her painting now seemed more alive. It didn't just stand against the cosmic storm, it shaped it. Light flowed from the figure's hands, creating patterns in the chaos. "You've been busy," Master Ta said, entering the studio. Jay jumped slightly. "I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing new things to add." Master Ta studied the painting. His 4 eyes widened, then narrowed. "Your style has changed. Is that bad?" Jay asked. "No, it's remarkable." Master Ta moved closer to the canvas. "Where did this come from?" Jay hesitated. Sue had warned her not to tell anyone about their meeting or the collection of Jay's art. "I just found new inspiration," she said carefully. Master Ta seemed to accept this. "The Academy exhibition is in 3 days. Will this be ready?" "Yes," Jay said confidently. "It will be my best work." After Master Ta left, Jay continued painting. She didn't notice the small camera in the corner of the room tracking her every brushstroke. In a secure meeting room, 7 aliens sat around a table. Elder Rim and Commander Q were among them. "The human's art is evolving rapidly," a scientist said, showing holographic images of Jay's painting at different stages. "The neural impact patterns are intensifying." "What happens if non-resistant species view the completed work?" Commander Q asked. The scientist looked uncomfortable. Based on historical data, the effects could range from mild discomfort to complete neural collapse. "Then we must act," Q said firmly. "The artwork must be destroyed before the exhibition. Perhaps the artist too." "No." Elder Rim stood up. "We are not destroyers of art or murderers of artists. That is not our way." "Your people suffered most from this weapon," Q reminded him. "Millions of actions died when their leaders went mad from viewing such art. And we learned from that tragedy," Elder Rim countered. "We developed mental shields. We adapted." "Not all species have had 300 years to adapt," another council member said quietly. The debate continued while the images of Jay's evolving painting floated above the table. Hyun and Da met in a quiet corner of the station's garden dome. "We found something big," Da whispered, checking to make sure no one was nearby. Project Canvas wasn't just about using Jay's art as a weapon. They were trying to understand how it worked. "And?" Hyun asked. "They discovered that certain humans can perceive reality differently. They see patterns that most species can't process safely." Da showed Hyun a small data chip. "This contains classified files about Jay's disappearance." Hyun took the chip. "How did you get this?" "Better you don't know. But it confirms the military took Jay to a secret facility. They wanted to create more artists like her." Da looked around nervously. "They succeeded, Hyun. They bred for the ability." "Are you saying Jay was created for this?" "No, not created. But her family line was encouraged. Certain marriages were arranged over generations." Da lowered his voice even more. "They were creating weapons, Hyun. Human weapons that could break alien minds." Hyun thought of Ja, her friend who loved painting and always laughed at bad jokes. "She doesn't know any of this, does she?" "I don't think so. But she's in danger now." Da stood up. "There's a Confederation meeting happening right now. Some want to eliminate the threat. We need to warn her," Hyun said. "Not yet. We need proof first, and a plan to keep her safe." In her studio, Jay stepped back from her nearly completed painting. Something had changed in how she worked. She could almost feel the colors and shapes before she painted them. It was as if they already existed somewhere, and she was just bringing them into this world. The door slid open. Jay expected Master Ta again, but it was Sue. "It's time you learned everything," Sue said, her face grave. "About Jay. About yourself. About what your art can really do." Behind Sue, 2 security officers stood in the hallway. "What's happening?" Jay asked, suddenly afraid. "The Confederation has voted," Sue said. "They're coming for your painting. And for you." "We don't have much time," Sue said, entering the studio. "Grab your painting." Jay stood frozen. "I don't understand. Why would they want my painting?" "Because they fear it," Sue explained quickly. the same way they feared G's work centuries ago. The two security officers stepped inside. Jay relaxed slightly when she recognized Hyun. "We've secured a path to the lower levels," Hyun said, "but we need to move now." "Wait," Jay said, backing away. "I'm not going anywhere until someone explains what's happening." Hyun and Dad exchanged looks. Day nodded. "Your ancestor G wasn't just an artist," Hyun began. "Her paintings affected certain alien minds, specifically the Axian species." "Affected how?" Jay asked. "They caused mental breakdowns," Dad explained. "The patterns in her art somehow interfaced directly with Axian neural pathways. It made them see something they couldn't handle. The truth of their place in the universe," Sue added. "A truth only humans like G and you can perceive and translate into visual form." Joe looked at her painting. The human figure standing against cosmic chaos now seemed dangerous. "So my painting could hurt people?" "Only specific species," Sue assured her. "But yes, it could cause severe harm to unprepared viewers." "This ability appears to be genetic," Da continued. "Human military forces discovered this during the war with the Axians. They cultivated the trait." "What do you mean cultivated?" Jay asked, though she feared she already knew. "Your family line was guided," Sue said gently. "Certain marriages were encouraged over generations to preserve and strengthen this ability." Jay felt sick. "I'm a weapon. My art is a weapon." "You're an artist," Hyun said firmly. "But your art can be weaponized. That's why Commander Q wants to destroy your painting and possibly take you into custody." A new voice came from the doorway. "I'm afraid it's too late for escape." They all turned to see Master Ta. He entered slowly, his 4 eyes blinking in pairs. "Master Ta," Jay said, relief flooding through her. "You can help us." "I'm trying to," he said, "but not by helping you run." Master Ta turned to the others. "Commander Q's agents are already on their way. They'll shoot to kill if they have to." "Then what do you suggest?" Sue asked. "The truth," Master Ta said simply. It's time Jay understood her full power. He moved to Jay's painting and studied it closely. "Your art doesn't just affect alien minds," he explained. "It reveals truths that most species can't process. But that revelation can be controlled, guided." Master Ta looked at Ja. "G knew this too, in the end." "What do you mean?" Jai asked. "The historical records only tell part of the story," Sue admitted. "G didn't just create art that broke minds. She discovered she could also heal them, but the military only wanted weapons, not healers." The station alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed in the corridor. "They're coming," Hyun said, checking her communication device. "Multiple teams, armed." "We need to move now," Dai insisted. Master Ta shook his head. "No, Jay needs to finish her painting." "Are you crazy?" Hyun asked. "That's exactly what they want to destroy. It's also her best defense," Master Ta countered, "if she completes it correctly." Joe looked at her painting. Just a few hours ago, it had been her greatest achievement. Now it was either a dangerous weapon or her only protection. "What do I need to do?" she asked Master Ta. "Find the balance," he said, "between revelation and understanding, between truth and acceptance." Jay picked up her brush. The sounds of heavy boots echoed down the corridor. "They're almost here," Dodd warned. Sue placed a hand on Jay's shoulder. "Remember what I showed you of G's later works? The patterns that heal rather than harm." Jay closed her eyes, remembering the hidden collection. There had been something different about the final paintings, a subtle shift in composition. She opened her eyes and began to paint as the footsteps grew louder. Jay's brush moved quickly over the canvas. She added small details to the human figure, changing its posture, adjusting how the light flowed from its hands. She wasn't sure why she made these changes. She just knew they felt right. 10 seconds, Dodd warned, watching his security screen. Hyun positioned herself by the door, hand on her weapon. Sue stood beside Jay, watching her work with wide eyes. "It's changing," Sue whispered. "I can feel it." The door burst open. 6 armed guards rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them walked Commander Q, his red-tinged skin dark with anger. "Stop right there," he ordered. "Move away from the painting." No one moved. Jay continued to paint, adding one final brushstroke. "I said stop," Commander Q shouted. Master Ta stepped forward. "Commander, this student has done nothing wrong. Her work is art, not a weapon." "We know what this art can do," Q said coldly. "We've seen the historical records." "You've seen what you wanted to see," a new voice said from the doorway. Elder Rim entered slowly, his golden eyes fixed on Commander Q. "The Council has not authorized this action," Elder Rim said. "The Council moves too slowly," Q replied. "I'm protecting the Confederation." By threatening an unarmed artist, Elder Rim looked at Jai, who had finally stopped painting. "May I see your work?" Everyone in the room tensed. Hyun moved closer to Jai protectively. "It's okay," Jay said quietly. She turned her painting so Elder Rim could see it. The room went silent. Elder Rim stared at the painting, the human figure standing against cosmic chaos, light flowing from its hands, creating patterns in the darkness. The patterns had changed. They now formed a complex design that seemed to pull the viewer in, then guide them safely back out. Elder Rim's body trembled slightly, but he didn't collapse as he had before. His eyes widened, then slowly returned to normal. "Fascinating," he said softly. "It still shows the truth, but now it also offers understanding." "That's impossible," Commander Q said. "These paintings cause neural collapse in Axion brains." "Only when the viewer refuses to accept what they see," Elder Rim replied. "G discovered this truth 3 centuries ago, but your military ancestors silenced her before she could share it." Ja looked at her painting with new eyes. "What does it show you?" "Our smallness," Elder Rim said, "and our greatness, the terrible beauty of a universe that cares nothing for us, and the miracle that we can care for each other despite that truth." He smiled slightly. "Humans see this naturally. For my kind, it is a difficult revelation, but not an impossible one," Master Tai added. Commander Q shook his head. "Pretty words don't change facts. This art triggered the collapse of the Axion Empire." "No," Elder Rim corrected. "The Axion Empire collapsed because its leaders couldn't accept what the art revealed, that we were not the center of the universe, that our power was temporary. They went mad because they refused the truth. My ancestor found a way to share that truth gently," Jay said, understanding finally dawning. But she was silenced. "Until now," Sue said, smiling at Ja. "Until you." Commander Q looked uncertain for the first time. "This changes nothing. The painting is still dangerous. Only to those who fear truth," Elder Rim said. "Let us test this. Bring the painting to the exhibition hall. Invite representatives from all species. Let them see, let them judge. And if they suffer neural collapse," Q demanded. "They won't," Jay said with surprising confidence. "Not if they come with open minds." Elder Rim looked at Ja with new respect. "The human speaks wisely. What do you say, Commander? Do we destroy art out of fear, or do we face what it has to show us?" Commander Q looked from Elder Rim to Jay to the painting. For a moment, the room balanced on the edge of violence. "Fine," he said at last. "The exhibition, tomorrow." He pointed at Ja. "But if anyone is harmed, I'll hold you personally responsible." As Commander Q and his guards left, Jay looked at her painting. In trying to save herself, she had created something entirely new, art that revealed truth while helping the viewer accept it. "Ready for your exhibition?" Master Tai asked, his 4 eyes blinking with what Jay now recognized as pride. "I think so," Jay replied. "But I'm open to criticism." The exhibition hall buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 17 different species filled the large room. Some wore protective gear over their eyes, just in case. Jay's painting stood covered on a special stand in the center of the room. Guards surrounded it, and monitoring devices tracked the neural activity of everyone present. "Are you ready?" Hyun asked Jai, who stood off to the side with Sue and Master Ta. "I think so," Jay replied, trying to stay calm. "But what if Commander Q is right? What if someone gets hurt?" "They won't," Sue assured her. "Your modifications worked for Elder Rim. They'll work for others too." Commander Q and Elder Rim entered together. Though they walked side by side, the tension between them was clear. Behind them came other members of the Confederation Council. "Let us begin," Elder Rim announced, his voice carrying across the now quiet room. "We are here to witness art that carries special significance. Some of you may have heard stories of the Destroyer's canvas from centuries past." A murmur ran through the crowd. "This human artist," Elder Rim continued, pointing to Jai, "is a descendant of G, whose work affected many during the human-Axian conflicts. But fear not. What we will see today is not a weapon, but a bridge between different ways of seeing." Commander Q stepped forward. "Everyone has been warned of potential risks. Medical staff are standing by. Viewing is voluntary." Elder Rim gave the signal. A guard removed the cover from Jay's painting. The crowd gasped. The painting seemed to glow with inner light. The human figure standing against cosmic chaos drew every eye. Some viewers stepped back instinctively. Others moved closer, fascinated. An Axian diplomat swayed slightly but remained standing. A reptilian representative blinked rapidly. Others simply stared, transfixed. "Remarkable," someone whispered. "I feel strange," said another. But no one collapsed. No one screamed. The monitoring devices showed increased brain activity in some viewers, but no signs of distress or breakdown. Commander Q looked surprised. "This isn't right," he muttered. "The historical records clearly showed." The historical records were incomplete. Elder Rim interrupted. "As I tried to tell you." Jay watched in wonder as beings from across the galaxy viewed her art. Some were moved to tears. Others looked uncomfortable but thoughtful. Each seemed to see something slightly different in the painting. Then a commotion erupted near the back of the room. 3 figures pushed through the crowd, weapons drawn. "Stop this now," one shouted. Jay recognized the voice. It belonged to one of Commander Q's officers. "Stand down," Commander Q ordered, looking confused. "This wasn't authorized. The painting must be destroyed," the officer insisted, raising his weapon. "It's too dangerous to exist." Guards moved to intercept them, but they were too slow. The lead officer fired at the painting. Jay didn't think. She ran forward, placing herself between the weapon and her art. Time seemed to slow down. Before the beam could reach her, Master Todd pulled her aside, and Elder Rim activated a shield that absorbed the blast. Station security quickly surrounded the attackers, forcing them to drop their weapons. "Who ordered this?" Commander Q demanded. "The order stands from 3 centuries ago," the officer replied stiffly. "Project Canvas protocols were never rescinded." The room fell silent again. Jazz stepped back to her painting, noticing the small burn mark at the edge of the canvas. "It can be fixed," she said, touching the damaged spot. Then, looking at the officer who had tried to destroy her work, she added, "Art isn't what you fear. It's your perception of it." She turned to the crowd. "Look again. But this time, don't just see with your eyes. Try to feel what I felt when creating it." Jay made a small change to the painting, adding a tiny brush stroke that altered how light flowed from the human figure's hands. "The difference between art that destroys and art that heals isn't in the art itself," she explained. "It's in how we choose to see it." Elder Rim nodded slowly. "The human speaks truth. This is what the Axian leaders could not understand centuries ago. They saw only threat in human perception, not possibility." Even Commander Q seemed thoughtful now, studying the painting with new eyes. Perhaps, he admitted reluctantly, we have more to learn from humans than we realized. 3 months had passed since the exhibition. Harmony Station had changed in that time. The art district expanded to include a new center called the Perception Gallery. Visitors from across the galaxy came to study how different species viewed the same artwork. Jay stood in the main hall, watching as a group of young actions carefully observed her painting. A human guide explained techniques for processing the complex emotions the art might trigger. Remarkable progress, Elder Rim said, joining Jay. Their ancestors would have collapsed from merely glancing at such work. Jay smiled. They're learning to see differently. We all are. After the exhibition, the Confederation had formed the Interspecies Artistic Understanding Initiative. Elder Rim became its director, with Jay as the human representative. Their mission was to study how art could bridge the perceptual gaps between species. Your next class starts in 10 minutes. Elder Rim reminded her. Jay nodded. She now taught a special course for artists from different worlds. They learned not just human techniques, but human ways of seeing. As she walked to her classroom, Jay passed the security office where Hyun and Dai worked. They had been reassigned to the initiative, monitoring the neural responses of visitors to ensure safety. They waved at her through the window. The classroom was already half full when Jay arrived. Students of various shapes, sizes, and colors sat before easels. Some held brushes in tentacles or claws rather than hands. Today we'll practice perspective, Jay announced. Not just how to draw it, but how to feel it. Master Tai entered and took a seat at the back of the room. Though no longer Jay's teacher, he often observed her classes. He said he was still learning from her. Begin with 3 lines, Jay instructed. Then consider what those lines mean to you before adding more. As the students worked, Jay walked among them, offering gentle suggestions. She had learned that criticism worked best when it helped others see new possibilities rather than pointing out failures. After class, Sue was waiting for her. The final documents have been declassified, Sue said, holding up a data pad. Project Canvas has been officially shut down after 300 years. Jay took the pad and scrolled through the files. There were images of Jai, her ancestor, working in a studio much like her own. There were military reports about the weapon potential of her art. And there, at the end, was Ji's final report. Art is not a weapon, Jay read aloud. It is a window between minds. What breaks one person might heal another. I will no longer create tools for war. The report was buried, Sue explained. Ji disappeared soon after writing it. But her ideas survived, Jay said. In her art. In her bloodline. That evening, a special ceremony was held in the main gallery. Commander Q, now assigned as liaison between the initiative and Confederation security, presented Ja with a medal. For bridging worlds through art, he said formally. The word seemed difficult for him, but his respect was genuine. After the ceremony, Jay found herself alone with her painting. The human figure standing against cosmic chaos seemed different now, not defiant, but inviting. The light flowing from its hands formed patterns that connected rather than separated. Still not perfect, she whispered to herself, seeing small flaws that could be improved. No art ever is, said Master Tai, joining her. That is its beauty. There is always room for growth. Jay smiled. So you're saying I should accept criticism? Always, Master Tai replied, his 4 eyes blinking in pairs. But remember that the greatest critic lives in your own mind. Learn to listen to that voice without being controlled by it. The next day, Jay stood before a new canvas. Around her, artists from 17 species worked on their own projects. Some struggled. Others made surprising breakthroughs. All were learning to see differently. Jay dipped her brush in paint and made the first stroke. Once, her ancestors' art had toppled empires because people feared the truths it revealed. Now, her art built bridges because people were learning to face those same truths together. Better, she asked Master Tai, who observed her first few lines. Different, he answered thoughtfully. And difference is how we grow. Jay nodded and continued painting, accepting that simple criticism as the highest praise.